So friends, we are very happy that you are here joining us for session 2, which is being hosted by Dr. Habib Riazati, who is the founder of Making a Human in the Making. And the topic for tonight is Concept of God in the 21st Century. Dr. Riazati, please.
Very good. Thank you so much for the short introduction and to the point introduction. And I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Neda, who has a lot of responsibilities and has accepted to host this. The concept of God in the 21st century, as the title suggests, it appears that we are trying to show that in each century you have different concept of God. Then you may ask, what do you mean and what is the difference between 21st century and say 19th century, 18th century, 12th century. And to that point, I want to start perhaps poking your head, if you will, that any concept of human mind is formed based on the maturity and the context of the time and the environment in which that person lives. That is to say, the concept of life, the concept of death, the concept of life after death, the concept of God, all of these have gone through an evolutionary process. And this is why the God of 200 years ago cannot be the same God as today, because humanity has matured, its comprehension has matured, and therefore it addresses things differently. To give you a simple dosage of what I am trying to accomplish tonight is God cannot be known, cannot be proven, cannot be described, and to be scientifically oriented and psychologically dimensioned, you see this concept to have different meaning for different people. As a psychologist, the people such as Carl Jung felt that it was an archetype. God was an archetype. God was a model. It was like a mother, father, and the people said there is a God creator. Whether such a archetype really exists or not, the people such as Jung and Adler, they said it doesn't really matter as long as this concept, this archetype is helpful for the person who believes in it. Why you bother? So psychologist looks at it from practical standpoint of view, that as Adler individual psychology of Adler suggests, he says religious concepts in themselves may not be provable, but as long as they serve a good aim and maintain the nobility of the individual and create unity between the hearts and elevate human mind and increase human creativity. This is why not. So psychology looks at it in some aspects, such as Adler, analytical psychology, and Jung, analytical psychology, and Adler, individual psychology, looks at it in a positive way, although you cannot prove it. This is why when they asked Jung, do you believe in God? Jung immediately laughed and said, why should I believe it? I know it. So the concept of true knowledge of self, true knowledge of the universe, perhaps could help us to understand the concept of God. So it is a concept. On the other hand, some people such as Freud, on the other hand, wrote a book, Future of an Illusion, and he said, you know, the concept of God is nothing but the necessity human mind feels to believe in because of the fears that he or she has, and therefore they need somebody to rely on. Oh, God, help me. Oh, God, do this, do that. So Freud wrote a book, Future of an Illusion, and called God and religious values to be nothing but a sign of immaturity of humankind. And he thought that as humans become mature, their understanding of themselves, of the universe increases, becomes holistic, then they themselves get rid of those old dogma. This is why his book, Future of an Illusion, simply means illusion doesn't have any future. Between these three psychologists, I personally believe that Freud was wrong to conclude that the concept, such as concept of God, is an illusionary, although I understand why he said that. If you look at the concept of God, the way that religions people have portrayed it is nothing but an old man sitting up there, divides people to good and bad, sends some people to heaven, some people to hell. And if the people like me who have not done any good, but he thinks he has done good, God says, okay, I put you somewhere in the middle until I find out what should I do with you. And or the God has a son, and then God has God creates heaven and earth in 6 days, and then on the day 7 he gets tired, and then he has to rest because the 7th day is a day of rest. And then after he rests, suddenly he realizes what a mistake he has made, and he feels that remorse. That's why he has called the creation. So when you look at this type of definition in religious understanding of their books, I do not necessarily say that religion in itself says these things, but at least the way that the people have understood it, God has become nothing but the man-made notion. This is why in Old Testament it says God made man in his image, and then the people such as Feuerbach in the 19th century, or the people like Marx, they said, no, I think you got it wrong. But man made God in his image, means that you are having some attributes, and then you have some weaknesses, and then you necessitate the existence of God, but it is you who are creating the concept of God. So as you can see, there was a clash between the old way of looking at God as a kind father or protector or savior, and all these good attributes, which I, as a psychotherapist, finds to be helpful, but that doesn't mean that there is an existence the way that we define it with those attributes. I believe the most fitting way to describe God is unknowable essence. Unknowable essence has many, many consequences in 21st century. Unknowable means no matter what I do, how I try, I never can understand this reality. Unknowable essence means I never understand the essence of God. And then, of course, the people come to you and say, can you tell me if you understand the essence of anything? And then you, after some philosophical investigation, say, no, 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 I do not understand the essence of anything. So then the people say, what do you mean, unknowable essence? So as you can see, 21st century looks at things differently. Why? Because science has emerged. We understand the laws of nature better. The concepts such as causality, and now in the 21st century doesn't have the same meaning as we used to think of it, that everything has a cause, and that then the world has a cause, then the universe has a cause, and therefore we call that cause of the universe God. And then we were happy, we were joyful, and we called him creator, and happily we lived after, until the people such as Bertrand Russell showed up, and Russell said, hold on a second, you told me everything has a cause, and then you said the world has a cause, the universe has a cause, and the cause of the universe is God. And then Russell said, excuse me, what is the cause of God? And then John Stuart Mill, he said, that question simply is like when I asked my father or my grandfather, how did I show up? And my father said, I was involved. And then how did you come up? He said, hey, well, to make a long story short, your grandfather. And he says, it was a beginning of the night, and we had the whole nights with us. So we got all the way to Adam. And then said, excuse me, who created Adam? He said, God. And then the little boy asked, who created God? And then the father said, let's change the subject, my son. That's as intelligent as that argument became. Then you see some people could not leave the concept of God, but at the same time could not accept the concept of God the way that people portrayed, the people such as Albert Einstein. Einstein is very, very famous for his notions. One of the works that I offer you is Ideas and Opinions. In that work, and also there is another very famous work called Einstein and Religion. Einstein and Religion. You can see that these Nobel physicists, see, I talked about psychologists, now the physicist, he said, do you know, there is a force, there is an unknowable force, there is a reality, but please forgive me, that cannot be the God that religious people portray. So he said, no, I don't believe in a man like God. So still, the key point was that he and other physicists, they denounced the existence of God based on the definitions that the religious people have given of God, especially a book that can help you tremendously. Let's see, I am trying to juggle between the books that I have brought here, is The Age of Reason, Thomas Paine. He also says that, you know, we grow, we mature, our concept of God, our concept of life has to be changed. So this is a physicist's perspective that not necessarily God doesn't exist, but if it exists, I do not know how does it exist. I know that I cannot apply the definitions that man made throughout the history. And there was a philosopher. Philosophers, perhaps the most important philosopher that I can refer to is Emmanuel Kant. Kant wrote a very famous book, Critique of Pure Reason. And also he wrote another book called Grounding for the Metaphysics of Morals. He was the first one, perhaps. He is the 18th century philosopher, the most important philosopher, perhaps after Plato. Some people do not agree with that evaluation, such as Bertrand Russell, but I personally feel, not knowing Kant, you may miss many things as far as the metaphysics is concerned. But one of the major contributions of Emmanuel Kant was that he examined every proof in the universe about the existence of God, and he showed that those proofs are not valid. And then he made a column. He said, these are the proofs, and these are the reason that they don't exist. And then he came with the third column. He said, but this column also can be nullified by other reasons. And then he came to the conclusion. He said, three things in this world cannot be proven, but it should be accepted. Why Kant? He said, because morality, because we want to be moral, because we want to be human, we want to be peaceful. What are those three concepts? He says, one is the existence of God. He says there is no way to prove that. And then The second one is that human kind actually has a free will. Nowadays, psychologists, when you go to any psychologist, you say, oh, this is what happened to me. He says, let's see what is your childhood. Let's see what did your mommy did. What did your daddy did? So they try to find something to do not blame you for what had happened to you, and try to unravel your childhood in order to understand your present behavior. Kant, not being a psychologist, he said, do you know what? If you believe everything has a cause, then freedom is just a notion. Freedom is a notion to choose between the causes, but you may not be causing it. You may not be choosing it. But that notion that you are free is good, helps you to be moral. Because if you even think that you are not free, then you cannot do a moral act. But he says you cannot prove it. He says another concept is life after death. He says nobody in this world can prove life after death. But he says, do you know if one day you are told this is the end of it, you will become very, very, very disappointed. Therefore, he believed life after death is a good moral principle because it also helps you to be peaceful, unified, hopeful, although you cannot prove it. And then concept of God. He said God cannot be proven, but it's good to believe in it because it increases the value of you being hopeful human being. That is philosophy until he came to another very famous person by the name of Nietzsche. Nietzsche wrote many books, as you know. Some people do not like him. Some people admire him. His very famous statement is, God is dead. And God is dead, and the people just quote that phrase. The phrase comes in one of his major work, Gay Science, is where that quotation is from. And then also in Zoroaster, Thus Said Zoroaster. These are the two major work of Nietzsche. And when you read Nietzsche very carefully, you see that he explains very well what does it mean by God is dead. In Thus Said Zoroaster, he starts the narrative by saying, I am going to cemetery. They say, where are you going, Nietzsche? He says, I'm going to cemetery. He says, cemetery, why? He says, because I'm going to bury God. God is dead. And then he continues to say, and we killed him. That is very famous, that the religious people who quote Nietzsche have to also understand that they should not take one quotation out of context. Nietzsche, in fact, helped humanity a lot in terms of understanding God. When he said, God is dead. Why? He says, because the God that you have assumed actually has belittled you, has made you dependent, has made you not to exercise creativity. When you have problems, rather than doing your best first, you rely. Prayers for the people such as Nietzsche, such as Kant, such as Jung, they say prayer is good, but prayer doesn't mean do it for me. Prayer doesn't mean that, oh God, I am helpless, mean I cannot try. Rather, for them, prayer meant just enable me, just empower me, let me to explore my inner reality. And as you can see, Nietzsche, in fact, when they asked him, when you go to cemetery to bury God, then what happened? He says, don't worry, the real God shall rise. What is that real God? He says that God, that humanity is not his slave, is not the God that divides people, is not the God that has father, is not the God that has son. And then he told Christian in his very famous work, Antichrist, he says, you belittled God, you belittled Christ. And he says, stop that notion. So as you can see, many people don't like him, but I know many of you who are in this forum, and later on you listen to this session, you know we always have to have a critical mind, critical thinking. Critical thinking means you do not fall into illusion. You try to analyze everything based on logic. And some of the logics that are used has to be understood. I want to introduce to you a very famous book by Gödel, Kurt Gödel. Gödel, I don't know whether you even have heard of his name, is G-O-D, German, Gödel, E-L''S. This is what he was saying. He says everything which is logical is inconsistent, and everything which is consistent is illogical. Please pay attention. Everything which is logical, you see inconsistency in it. And everything which is inconsistent, there is some logic in it. And Gödel was saying that critical thinking means to look at the world as a logical but inconsistent term. Now, whether God can be proven, no, because God doesn't have any type of logical consistency, because logic requires parts, relationship, and God cannot have parts or relationship. So now that I said all of these, how about as far as day-to-day operation, does really God mean anything? I, as a psychotherapist, and as a scientist, and as a researcher, I believe there is only one valid definition for God, and the roots of God, the root of the word. See, if they ask you, what is your name? You say, my name is such and such. And then I say, what does it mean? Sometimes you say, it doesn't have any meaning. I say, no, that's not true. See, for instance, my name is Habib, and Habib means friendly. This is why I'm a user-friendly guy. See, everything has a meaning. So what is God? Why in the whole world, Neda Khanum, they chose G-O-D. They could say A-A-A, O-O-O, B-B-B. Why G-O-D, for God's sake? Just do that homework. you see that the universe will unfold in front of you. But to give you a zip of what's happening, German, gut, seems to be the root of the word God. Gut means good, and then it goes to English, good becomes G-O-O-D, and then, you know, I am American, you are American, we have all US citizenship, and we like things to be shortened. So drop one O, you get God, good. Very good. You may laugh at me, but that has a lot of practical implication. Anything which is good is actually, we call godlike. Wow, this is why the source of all good is God. And good is God. So now you get the $20 billion question, what is good? Is it religious good, scientific good, cultural good? And then the answer comes, good doesn't have any culture, doesn't have any religion, doesn't have anything, but that everything is in harmony. Everything has a relationship. Everything has cohesive relationship. So how do I know I am godly? And then the answer is, look at your thoughts, look at your feelings, look at your actions. Does it really make you to feel noble, good? When you feel creative, when you see good in yourself, when you consider yourself a mine full of gems, that is when you look at God. God is good, because unless you see this good in yourself, you cannot really see the good in others. I rarely quote religion because I want to be holistic, but when it says God made man in his image, what does that really mean practically? Means whatever you want to see in God, you need to manifest it. God is kind, so be kind, Habib. God is generous, so be generous, Habib. God is just, then be just, Habib. Do you see how am I using it? Scientists, scientifically, that has some value. See, I am not trying to push any religion. I believe religion is a personal notion. I believe everybody has a right to believe in anything that he or she chooses, but anything that I choose, it has to make me noble. It has to make me creative. I have some capacity as a human being. I have to know those treasures within me, and I have to engage in a thoughts, feelings, and actions that makes me noble. So beautifully has stated, even in the Bible. We are near Christmas, so I better quote Bible, that you not be mad at me. When Jesus says, the kingdom of God is within thee, please pay attention again. Kingdom of God is within thee. That means if you want to know God, look within your own self. If your God is an ugly person, always is a nasty person, you always consider yourself weak, you consider yourself lowly, your God is very lowly. But if you consider yourself noble, creative, rich, this is why he says, I have created you noble, I have created you rich, I have created you filled with knowledge. Why thou bring thyself to the poverty? And then they continue saying, especially in the writings of Islam and the Baha'i faith, turn thy face unto thine own self, that you find me within thine own self, standing within thee. So as you can see, read hidden words of Baha'u'llah, you can see Islam, Rumi, Masnavi has a lot of them. So as you can see, with that context, God means what makes me noble, good. I don't look at my bad qualities. That doesn't mean I'm denying it, but I don't dwell on it. But what I do is, through the good qualities, I try to get rid of the bad qualities. Please pay attention. God also has a social implication. God means good for all. Anything that you do, you feel, ask yourself, does it benefit humankind? Humankind. Human, to be human. What does human mean? Human has a mind, has a feeling, has a heart, has a body. What is the reality of man? See, ladies and gentlemen, I am trying to get rid of these notions of illusion of God and bring it to become metaphysical, but at the same time mystical, but at the same time practical. If I asked a Christian, what is God? He says, God is love. Well, very good. And love is very good thing. You tell people, I love you, I want you, all of these things, especially during Christmas time. But can you love anybody if you don't love yourself? How do you love yourself? If God is love, does it mean that you respect yourself? Does it mean that you value your time? Does it mean that you enjoy serving others? Does it mean that you do not abuse yourself and do not abuse somebody else? See, that is a psychological implication of God as an individual. The same thing as Kant said, Kant beautifully said it. He said, whatever you do, ask yourself, if the whole world does it, what is going to happen? If it benefits humankind as a whole, that is a good act. That is a godly act. I hope that you understood my intention. The second thing and the last thing that I would like to dwell on before we go to the questions is that there is a book. I have a lot of books here, and I'm so excited. I don't know what to show you. And then you go and buy them, then you have the same book that I have, and then that's not fair. But I'm going to share it with you. There is a book, whether you believe it or not, called A History of God. The History of God by Karen Armstrong. This lady is a marvelous lady. I had a pleasure to see some of her remarkable statement in different conferences. I have been trying to invite her to some of my seminars. She is not biased. She used to be Christian. She was a nun. And she, after investigation of all the religions, she came to the conclusion that these religions that are out there, they have been more divisive than more unifying. But she is trying to say the reality of our religion, if it is love, if it is submission to the will that creates unity, peace, he says, go for it. He says God cannot be proven, but God can be a notion for the people to understand goodness. This is a very major work. Another book that I would like to introduce is called The Face of God Among Us. This is very famous book by a philosopher type John Hatcher. Very, very detailed person. I know him personally. I admire the work that he does. He says, really, can you see God in everything around you? You never can see God, but you can see its attributes in everything. And for those of you who are familiar with Islam and Rumi, when they ask Rumi, where is God, sir? He says, show me a place where there is no God. See, as simple as that. Rumi, Masnavi. Or wherever you look is the face of God. In fact, I believe this title has been taken from that passage, that wherever you look is the face of God. What do you mean? Tell me as a psychotherapist, what does it mean? What it means is very simple, that in everything you try to find something good, and then you see good in everything. Because I'm only telling you, not the other people, because you are my friends. I'm telling you, there is no evil. There is no evil in this world. Evil is absence of good. This is why they say, hear no evil, see no evil. So what is evil? What is Shaytan? Do you know devil? You usually, if somebody does something naughty, you say, hey, Shaytan, oh, devil. But you really do not mean anybody is devil, but some people believe there is a devil. And we, at least I, as a scientist, psychotherapist, philosophy, as a major, I believe there is no reality called Satan. Satan is what human mind conceives. When you try to be liars, we call that satanic. When you try to be unfair, we say that is evil. So concentrate on good and forsake all evil is equivalent to believing in God. So as you can see, you cannot prove God. Bertrand Russell is another very famous person. Read that book, Bertrand Russell on God and Religion. This book is very famous. Why? Because Russell says, do you know, I cannot prove it, I cannot disprove it. At the best, I'm agnostic, but be human. If you are human, if you are noble, if you are kind to yourself, if you are not a slave to ideology, he says, then and only then you feel peace within yourself. And he says, that is called God. So that is one book. Let's see, my time is running out and you become sleepy. So let's see what other book I want to introduce to you. There is another book, Search for ultimate meaning. Man's search for ultimate meaning. Viktor Frankl. This book is one of the most important books that has been written in psychology. I suggest if you have difficulties in your life, if you have depression, if you have crisis, if you have suicidal ideations, and all of those negative things, read this book. This book is one of the major works that has been written in psychology. His title is very interesting. Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and then he realized everybody can have its own meaning, and your meaning might be very mean to my meaning. So this is why he came out that no. Meaning means ultimate meaning. If something is not good for the whole, is not good for you. Perhaps Saadi, for those of you, I don't hesitate to mention this name because their works have been translated into English. Rumi, Saadi, Hafiz are very famous with their notion that the whole humanity is only one temple, one human, and every one of us are the parts of that temple. He says God means that wholeness. If you look at the whole, you look at God. When you look at the whole, you see only good, but good is in diversity. I don't try to make you to become like me, and I should not make myself to be like you. But if I am sincere, if I am honest, if I am kind, I can see kindness in you, and you can see kindness in me. And then through observance of kindness, we establish a phenomena that we call love. Love is not an emotion, ladies and gentlemen. Love is a phenomena which involves logic, involves cognition, involves feelings, and involves relationship. You never can experience God and love without relationship. This is why, please pay attention, I'm towards the end of it, when Saadi is saying, دوست به من ز من نزدیکتر است وین عجب که من ز وی دورم. I said it for most of you, but let me translate it for the Persians, because Persians do not understand my English that I just read. He says, my dear friend, my ultimate friend is closer to me than my own vein. It is very unfortunate that I am very far from him. We are, ladies and gentlemen, in order to even experience a concept such as God, you have to know yourself. This is why Socrates, from Socrates, Plato, all the way to Nietzsche, all the way to Russell, Kant, know thyself. Know thyself, and you do not know how many years you are going to live in this universe. Usually a healthy person assumes that this day is the last day and tries to do that which is holistic, to be noble. So, what is meaning, therefore? God is meaning. Means whatever gives you meaning is godly. So therefore, if meaning is God, you never go after ideologies that say, I am better than somebody else. Whether it is Islam, whether it is Baha'i faith, whether it is Judaism, whether it is Christianity. No, anything that separates is not godly. You do not go after ideology that tries to be anti-woman, based on gender, based on race, based on culture. You do not judge people. Those are we call evils. So, ladies and gentlemen, my intention was to provide a space for you to go and investigate about what does this phrase, word, verbiage, concept, subject means for you. I know some people like it the way it is, but my notion is, please think about what you think is valuable. To do this, my next session, which relates to this session, will be to understand what is critical thinking really. Does critical thinking helps understand us, world, universe, and then God? And then you will see that one of the reasons that the people have become immoral, irreligious, is because they never think. They never use their critical gift that they have. If time permits, in 2 weeks, I invite one of my friends, my co-worker, who perhaps gives us some description of what is critical thinking, how can it be useful for being a moral human being, ethical human being. After I confirm with her, I will announce it through NEDA, then that way you can prepare for it. We also with NEDA are trying to create a list of subjects that you can study beforehand also, that you come with your question. So, in summary, God is not an object, is not a subject, is not a notion, is an unknowable reality. I cannot define him. Whatever I define, it comes from my mind, and my mind cannot comprehend something which is above it. Therefore, we believe in it, but the belief in God simply means we try to be godlike. That's all it matters. Existence of God doesn't need a proof, because the proof comes from human mind. Proofs are for the people who cannot feel that existence, but God should be felt within our heart, within our mind, and through our action towards other human beings, other elements of the universe, whether mineral, vegetable, or animal. Forgive me.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Neda.
Yes, thank you. Really, this was wonderful, even better than session one. I think they're all very complementary. We do ask that if the friends do have a question, to please go ahead and use the raise your hand feature. Before we do that, just want to let the friends know, and I will remind you again at the end of the session, our next session will be December 23rd. And then the one right after, which will be in the beginning of 2022, will be on January 6th. So just in case you want to write those down so you don't forget. So we do have Iris Silva. Iris, if you have a video, it would be nice to show yourself when you are asking your question. And please unmute yourself. Yeah, we still can't hear you, dear. If you can just please unmute yourself. Yeah, we still can't hear you. You might want to raise up your volume, maybe the volume on your computer. Yeah, we still can't hear you, dear. Yeah. Do you want to maybe put your question into the chat and I can read it out loud? Yeah, we can't hear you. I don't know why.
Okay, we can go to the next question, perhaps.
Yeah.
Any questions? No question? Everything was so simple, huh, Neda?
No, it just means that you were so thorough. And I know that all the suggestions of your books are ones that, you know, they're writing down, and because it really does help us when somebody else does that legwork. And then we're like, okay, now we know where to go. So that was really helpful. And I'm sure a lot of the friends here are very appreciative of that. No, you're just thorough. I mean, you know what you're doing.
Very good. Any question?
Iris, I really would like to ask you to please put your question in the chat. Sharon, please turn on your camera and please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hello, sorry, my camera's not working today.
Okay.
But I do have a question. A lot of what you were saying, I understand in like 12-step programs and recovery programs, they talk about a God of your own understanding. And I've always thought that was interesting of how do you understand God? You know? So can you just, if you have any experience with that, can you talk about how that fits within the philosophers and the discussions of today?
Very good question, and thank you very much for that question. We use that 12-step programs in order for the people to recover from emotional bondages, the harmful habits that they have, and that's true. One of the steps for the internalization of an individual's reality is that you have a concept of the higher being. And that concept, as long as it is helpful, you do not lose hope, and therefore you do not become bounded, chained by the trouble that you have, whether it is drug, or alcohol, which mainly 12-step program is used for by psychologists as an alternative suggestion. Philosophers also say the same thing, that whenever you are in a crisis, in a dilemma, you have to find the value of the God that you have envisioned. As you know, and I try to emphasize, God is not a thing. God is not something that we can feel, touch, but it is a source of power, source of meaning, source of energy. And everybody, based on the education, based on the culture, based on all the environmental variables that he or she has a concept of that being. So, yes, I believe that we have all concepts of God. My hope is that our concepts becomes more and more mature, more unified, and our God would not be gods of illusion and idle fancies. I think the gods of idle fancies and vain imagining is what we want to get rid of. This is why God is a source for creativity. God is just another name for become healed by your own healing process. I don't know whether I helped things a little bit or not. So philosopher and some people such as Albert Einstein, he says it's good. There is a force, there is hidden. It is a hidden mystery, but apparent. Apparent in its attributes, but it's hidden in its essence. So crisis and victory is something to try to find God in it, and that is our ultimate meaning. There is something higher than me. If I'm in crisis, if I'm addicted, I do not need to become alienated from myself, from others. I should not become violent. No, because there is a higher aim. If I take the first step, with the next, I can enter that hidden treasure, that hidden realm. This is why Jesus says, knock the door and it shall be open. This is why Muhammad says, take the steps and then confirmation comes. So as you can see, that God, that everybody has his own God and has to have his own God, means there is a source of good in everybody that can tap on, whether it is 12-step program or it can be ordinary life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Dr. So I do have the question now from Iris Silva. She says, historically today, what programs do you believe have been the most successful for humans to become in touch with their different parts, such as the mind, ego, body, soul, spirit? And then she says, what suggestions on the integration process of all these human aspects have become the most effective according to your knowledge as a psychologist and science on the study of consciousness?
Very good question. It is perhaps one of the practical questions, Iris, and I thank you for that question. Do you know, if you consider the whole world as a system, not only humans, the whole world, the whole universe, then you realize that this universe is interconnected to each other. And there is what we call synchronicity, we call synergy, that they help one another's coexistence. Let me tell you what do I mean. We look at the world in an isolated, separated elements, and that has caused us anxiety, caused us depression, caused us duality. But when you look at the whole universe as one reality, which is connected, unified, but diversified, then you will see that anxiety comes down because you don't feel alone anymore. Your pain will be shared by all. Your happiness will be shared by all, to the point that now it has been even proven. If you think positive, Iris, that energy will spread throughout the universe, even without you knowing it. When you think negative, that also impacts every element of the universe. This is very famous that Muhammad, he says, if you kill one person, you have killed the whole world. Quran. In another place, he says, when you make one person saddened in the east, another person in the west becomes saddened. That shows connectivity. That shows wholeness. In fact, there is a term that religious people are using called holy. What does holy mean? Holy doesn't mean iris holes, huh? When you say holy, you mean that you have a lot of holes in your body, or what is it? Holy, the roots of it is holis, Holis, and the meaning is healthy, whole. Anything which is whole, holistic, is healthy, then it is holy. So your religion is a part. Your philosophy is a part. Your existence is a part. But when you integrate it together, it's called holy. Please pay attention. Religion, what does religion mean? For instance, what does religion mean? Let's see, I have to pick up on somebody. Let's see. Neda Khanum, you are my best friend. What does religion mean?
You shouldn't pick on me, you should pick on somebody else.
Okay, let me pick up somebody else. Melinda Bach. Melinda? No? Oh, she's asleep.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yes. What does religion mean, my friend?
I knew you were going to call on me. I guess we are connected. A religion.
Don't describe the word religion. See, your name is Melinda. What does Melinda mean?
Gentle.
Very good. See, so simple. This is why you're so gentle. You take time to answer. Now, what does religion mean? The word religion. Let's see. Joyce Miller. Go for it. Go, Joyce. No? Okay, I passed the buck on you. Let's see. Fuad John Aney. No.
Don't pass the buck. Joyce was about to answer.
I don't know. I don't know.
Unmute.
Okay, Joyce, go for it.
I think religion is your connection with that universe, that creator, that creation. It's however you frame it, a framework.
Very good. You are a good describer. But see, Iris had a question, and I'm asking you questions to help his question to understand further question. Do you know religion comes from the root religio, reunite. Religion doesn't mean do's and don'ts. Religion doesn't mean go to Mecca, Jerusalem, Haifa. These are only structures. Religion is not in Vatican, is not in Mecca. Religion is what reunites you. Reunite? What do you mean? It means that we were united. But through this separation, through these ideologies, through these cultures, through these systems of politics, we were all separated. Religion means reunite with your original substance, which was one and whole and holy. That's beautiful, Neda. If this is a religion, then any system that helps us to reunite is a good religion. Anything that helps us to separate, that means is helping us to be irreligious. Please pay attention, Iris. In individual term, you are whole. What do you mean? You have a soul, you have a mind, you have a feeling, and you have a body, right? Just raise your hand. I know you cannot talk for whatever reason. Now, do you know if you think something, you feel something else, you do something else, do you think you are united? No. In psychology, we call it hypocrite. What do you mean? I tell Neda Jan, Neda Najibi, I love you, you're so good. But this is bored. Do I really feel like that? Do I really think like that? Do I really have thought like that? Or I just say it? Do you see the wholeness? Holiness means bring in harmony your inner and outer. If I bring that as an individual, then I can expand it to the society, then I can expand it to the universe. Do you see that, Iris? So yes, unity in diversity. Do you know what is the best thing that can help you to understand it? Don't tell anybody, Neda. But one way to understand this concept is mathematics. Calculus. What is the heart of calculus for those of you who have gone to the college? Is integration and differentiation. What does integration mean? This is a terminology by Newton and Leibniz. Integration and differentiation. Right? Differentiation means that there are different sets of variables and they are infinite. Integration means find a common area between all these variables. Religion calls it unity in diversity. See, mathematical term. The world is a system. The system, because of time and a space dimension, at least 2 dimension, you see different variation of variables. So our race, our gender, our cultures, our likes, our dislikes, these are all variables. System says, Habib, Nida, Iris, you are from 3 different set of environment, but that's okay. There is a common ground which defines your wholeness. Then the race doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter, your culture doesn't matter, but it is beautiful to have it. This is why the answer to your question, Iris, is found in many books. One book which I highly recommend is by Jean-Paul Sartre. It is called Existentialism is a Humanism. To exist as a whole, you need to be human as a whole. Another very famous book is Bhagavad Gita. This is a book that I highly recommend that you read. How you consider the whole universe to be one system. and how each system is connected, but also has its own individuation. So, to answer that question, in summary, holistic means value your individuation, but also concentrate on unity. Any system that has not allowed individuation means individual nobility. Read a book, I don't have it here, Undiscovered Self by Carl Jung. You see that on lists. I am individual. What does individual means? What does individual means? What is this word means? See, Neda, I don't know English. I want to learn the meaning of this word. What does individual means? Tina, S. Go for it.
Unique. Being unique.
Being unique. Very good. So you are a unique woman. Let's see. She is my best friend from San Diego. Let's see. Payman. Payman.
Yes, sir.
See, don't tell me. See, Tina is a philosopher. Gave me a philosopher definition. Just tell me, what does individual mean, for God's sake?
I think it is your basically your thoughts. Your reality is your thoughts, and
Okay. Now you see, you again became very complicated for me. I'm humble.
is what you think.
But God said, I didn't say what is the reality of a man. Then you say it is his thought. His thought is the
individuality.
Individual. See, I'm an English guy.
Individual and uniqueness.
Individual. IN means negation. Individual means divided. Individual means non-divided.
It's a uniqueness. It's one.
That uniqueness of
one,
not divided. That means I am not divided within me, because then I get all of this disorder psychologically. I am honest. I am faithful. I am all the attributes, but I am one. When I'm individual, that is healthy. But individual also means that I am not divided when I am within the system by other people. But if I have a dog, if I have a cat, if I am in the environment, I see that I am not separated from them. Read this book, Bhagavad Gita, the book that helps you to understand individual, society, and the system, attributed to Krishna. Next question.
Yeah, the next question is Tracy. Tracy, please unmute yourself.
Sorry, it's got a what do you call it? A verification I've never seen before. So, okay. My question was on the statement that you said that pure. Now, see if I can remember it now, because I've been listening to all this other stuff. Question maybe gone. It had to do with the inconsistency of true logic. So I didn't understand this thought of logic being inconsistent. Is it inconsistent within different realms of logic, or I really, it escaped me. I kept listening to you and trying to put it together, and it just never would go into my really stubborn head that logic would be inconsistent.
Beautiful. See, now, I don't know whether Neda tells you or not. Neda always tries to watch over me, but my nickname is to confuse people. You have to get confused in order to move forward. Why do we get
That's
confused?
how we learn things, is to unravel the knots. Yeah, sure.
This is exactly what I meant by logical inconsistency. Means that you are logical as long as the critical question has not attacked your logic, then you become inconsistent. But the more inconsistent you are, you have a better chance of creating a logical string of phenomena. Read that book by Kurt Gödel, because you look at it, you might have religions that claim logical, but it is inconsistent. For instance, a religion is about love and peace and unity, right? Nice word. No inconsistency is this. But do you know women are a little bit lower than man? Oh, really, really? But see, when you ask the question, you create to break the framework of the logic that you were using because it was inconsistent. Then you create a new frame of logic, but you have to be ready for another inconsistency. This is why you do not find one system in the world in 21st century or any time in the universe that could not follow that rule of Kurt Gödel. You look at your own religion, look at your own system of thinking. Many things you say, do you know, I have accepted this by faith. Really? Doesn't really faith means when the reason exhausts? See, already you dealt with logical inconsistency.
You threw it right out. Yes.
Do you see that? So did I explain it?
Yes. That's why I was thinking that was related, and I couldn't figure out how it was related, that you said God does not exist.
Exactly.
And I was like,
Because the moment you say exist, you create inconsistency. Do you know why? Because supposedly he or she or it, all of them are inconsistent to use for it, has created the existence. How can he exist within the existence? You see that?
Can't fit our model of existence.
Exactly. I think that you, your question was brilliant, Tracy, because
just confused. That's all.
and confusion is very good, because confusion means that my framework needs toning up. Don't go after the people who confirm what you think. Go after the people who question with the right intention about why you think the way you think. This is why logical inconsistency helps people to make better choices, to become a better human. If we teach our children how to think rather than what to think, then we save them from less inconsistency and converging towards more logical consistency. Do you see that? And that is one aspect of investigation of truth. Okay, very good. What is next?
Okay, so our next person is Fuad. And just to let you know, after Fuad, we do have Iris circling back, okay?
Okay, Iris, the great
Fuad, please.
Mr. Riazati, what it means to you, God created us?
God, oh my God. God doesn't create anybody. What do you mean God created us? That means God didn't have us before. Think, see, this session is about exercise of thinking about what thinking might be. Sharon Baldoni, my best friend, is also online. She may say something too. See, God created. God's really creation means act that he did, that he didn't have before. Does creation involve time and space? God created heaven and earth in 6 days. Oh, really? Why 6 days, lazy God? Make it 1 day. Make it twinkle of an eye. Isn't that a better God, Joyce? A God which doesn't create for 6 days. And then even what? He creates everything, but in the 3rd day, he creates the sun. Then I have to ask Mr. God, oh, sorry, I don't know, it is Mr. or Mrs. See, all of them is a logical inconsistency again. He doesn't have to have a gender. So why do you call him? He is God. What does that he mean? See, I'm encouraging you to think, God passes by. Oh, really? He passed by? I thought everywhere that I look, there is God. How come he passed by me? Does it really mean something else? All these symbolic pointers. How can Mr. Aini, he creates sun in the 3rd day and then he keeps track of the day on the 1st day? Think, logical inconsistency principle. So when we say created is just a notion, Mr. Aini, that means something came about. Was it Big Bang? Was it the substantial transformation from one stage to another? Darwinism is involved. Creationist view is involved. Evolutionist view is involved. Do you see that? But my aim is that whatever you say about this God, ask yourself, why are you saying that? I am just giving you a hint. Is there any reason that actually in a later religions, starting from Christianity, the concept of God was thrown out, and instead we concentrated on the perfect man called Jesus. Jesus is the Lord. What does Jesus mean? What is the difference between Jesus and Christ? That Christ created the world? This is what it says. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and Word was God. John chapter 1, verse 1. If you are a Baha'i or a Muslim, you do not attribute the creation to God, you attribute the creation to primal will, Mashiach. So as you can see, even you have a very famous manifesto. God created everything through primal will and created the primal will via primal will. خلق الله الأشياء بالمشيئة وخلق المشيئة بنفسها. Do you see that? I am trying to break down these idols that has caused God and naturally religion to lose its value. Ladies and gentlemen, the new wine cannot be put in old bottles. We are using old terminology, old system of thinking, and we want to define the new reality in it. I don't want to create more confusion. Go and read about quantum. Go and see if there is any existence as we see. Read Russell about matter and mind. Is it really something out there called matter? What is it? Does it mind matter or doesn't matter? So all of this thing is something that thought reshapes concept of creation. I end with this very famous passage from Bob. It says, whosoever considers God the creator, he has actually created a relationship between him and what has been created. And relationship means needs and dependency. And dependency violates self-sufficiency of God. Do you see that thought? Again, becomes logical inconsistency. Next.
Iris, please.
Iris, what happened to you?
Okay, well, I do have her question. Let's see. Okay, so her question is, could you say integration within the self and God is the same?
Yes, you can say, but Iris, unless, what is God that you want to become integrated with him? It seems that in your question, there is a logical inconsistency again. See, I am going to use this term throughout our sessions until you get it and you can practice it. You say, I am integrated with God, means God is here, I am here, we become best friends. But there is no such a thing. This is why the faces of God among us, Hatcher, wants to say that no, there is a mystical energy, but manifested in everything. So integration between you and God, Iris, simply means this. Whatever you define or give attribute to God, you can become it. You can become manifestations of God's attributes. That is called integration with God. For instance, God is creator, you be the creator. You be the Albert Einstein of the next. You be the Tahira of the next. You become Mary Wollstonecraft. You become Gandhi. That is called creation. God is kind. You be kind. God is just. You be just. That is called integration. So as you can see, integration with God means to internalize those attributes and transform. What does transform means? Again, my English is no good. What does transform means, Neda? The word transform, go beyond, trans. You say, in New York, we have a good transportation. Transform. When you look at yourself, you think you are isolated form, you are nothing but a body, but this is a form. Go beyond, you find thoughts. Go beyond, you find soul. You go beyond, you find universe. Go beyond, you call it God. So as you can see, there is a macro system view of the universe, and there is a micro system view of the universe. From the element, you can go to the whole, and from the universe, you can come to the element. And that is called one thing that humankind has not even fathomed: quantum physics. If quantum physics is true, all of these terminologies have to be thrown out. So God passes by when Shoghi Effendi uses it. What does that really mean? Does it really mean that the new breeze of those energies in a new intensity has wafted over humanity? Is that, or God passed by, the poor God was in this location, then suddenly chose to go to that location, becomes logical inconsistency, and then Nietzsche comes and says, hey, Habibullah, God is dead. Why? Because God doesn't pass anywhere. God's everywhere. God is within you, and you have to feel it within you. And unless you feel it, nobody can transform it to you. This is why personal transformation is a key issue to understanding the concept of God. Sorry, how many more hours, Netajan, do we have?
Actually, we're over our time.
Okay.
Yeah, we're over our time. So thank you so much. I mean, what a great topic again was concept of God in the 21st century. So friends, thank you for your time. Again, Dr. Riazati, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And our next class is December 23rd. So we will see you again. Thank you so much.
Good. Good night.